So I did an article the other day on the differences between empaths and highly sensitive people, and I got a lot of feedback from that. Most empaths saying, yes, I'm so glad you did this. A lot of empaths, or people who thought they were empaths, saying, wait, maybe I'm not empathic then. I was thinking I was empathic, but I think I'm actually highly sensitive. And some people responded with a little bit of confusion, saying, can you distill this a little bit more for me? So I just wanted to talk about a few points in the article. I will also post a link to the article for those who didn't see it, so you can read that as well, because I'm not going to go into extreme detail here. I just wanted to point out a few things. So first of all, empaths and highly sensitive people are not the same. They're different. A highly sensitive person, as defined by Dr. Elaine Aron, who is the one who came up with the term, is a person who has a highly sensitive nervous system, is aware of subtleties in his or her surroundings, and is more easily overwhelmed when in highly stimulating environments. So a person who's highly sensitive is just that. They are sensitive to environments. They're sensitive to stimulation. They're sensitive to energy around them. Empaths are also sensitive to energy around them and to highly stimulating environments, etc. But the actual gift of empathy, or expression of it, is more extrasensory in nature. An empath has in some way a direct experience of another person's emotions or thoughts or feelings, or sometimes physical ailments. There's all different ways empathy can play out. And there's all different forms of empathy, which is a whole nother subject. But not all empaths are emotional empaths. I tend to focus on emotional empaths because that's what I am. But there's all different forms of emotional empathy. But in some way, it is having a direct experience of another person's energy in some way. So just because you're highly sensitive does not mean you're actually having a direct experience of someone else's emotional body or energetic body. And the only reason I think this is important to point out and distinguish is because highly sensitive people are reactive in nature. So because they're highly sensitive, they tend to be very reactive to environments around them. What's happening when a highly sensitive person goes out and they're experiencing the energy around them is their central nervous system is reacting to it. And they are therefore experiencing their own emotions, their own reaction to the energy around them. When an empath goes out, typically they're literally drawing in other people's experiences. I'm talking specific. Sometimes you will, like people who are clairsentient or physical empaths, will maybe be in a room with someone. They walk into a room and someone has a migraine, and they might automatically get a migraine. Or if in the article I pointed out, if, let's say, for example, your best friend's child died, an empath may experience what her friend is feeling exactly, exactly the grief. Like if the mother has a stomach ache from the loss of her child, the empath might feel it. Or if she has certain thoughts that are going through her head that are suicidal, the mother or the friend might feel it. So the empath is directly feeling or directly experiencing what another person is experiencing. And this is not the same also as being just empathetic or having empathy for somebody, because every human has empathy to an extent, unless you're a sociopath. The definition of a sociopath is someone who is incapable of having empathy. So every human has empathy. An empath, however, like I said, experiences it directly and specifically. Basically, if you're an empath, it's extrasensory in nature. It's an extrasensory perception. And it's kind of in the psychic, what people call psychic categories, although I don't really like to call it that because the term psychic has such, negative connotation, I think. But nonetheless, that's what it is. The reason, again, why I think this is important to understand is because if you're highly sensitive and you think you're empathic, you may be assuming that you're picking up on what other people are feeling, but you're actually just, like I said, you're experiencing your own reaction, your own central nervous system's reaction to the energy around you. And the reason I think this is important to distinguish is because one of the dark sides of a highly sensitive person, especially one who is unskilled and unhealed if you have deep emotional trauma from childhood, and also I want to say everybody does this, what I'm about to say, but this is prevalent among highly sensitive people, If you have unhealed emotional wounds, or you are just unskilled as a highly sensitive person and don't know how to deal with your sensitivities, you often, anyone who's highly sensitive often go into projection. So if you're going out into an environment and you're sensitive to the energy around you, so you're having an intense reaction, if you usually project. So let's say project what you're feeling onto the world around you. So assuming that the reality out there is the same reality as the one you are experiencing. And that's actually not true. It's a projection of your own fears and your own insecurities and your own whatever you're feeling in the moment. Again, we all do this. Empaths do it as well. Anyone, especially when we're insecure or afraid, a lot of times project. But do you see the difference between when you're experiencing your own world and you're seeing the world through your own lenses and your own sensitivities and then projecting that on the world like it's the reality, versus literally picking up on what the reality is out there for other people and feeling it? So it's a different thing, which is what an empath does, literally pick up the reality for other people and feel it. When highly sensitive people think they're empathic, a lot of times they'll use a lot of tools that empaths use to raise their vibration in order not to be a match to certain things, or try to experience the emotion and release it, whatever they're feeling. And not to say those are not good tips for a highly sensitive person, but the issue is, again, the projection. So it almost exacerbates if a highly sensitive person believes that they are literally picking up on what other people are thinking and feeling, or what the reality out there is, when in reality they're just responding to their own central nervous system and their own sensitivities in that, and usually typically their own beliefs. So if you have a negative belief about yourself and you're a highly sensitive person and you go out in an environment in which you're highly sensitive, you will project that negative belief about yourself onto everything and everyone around you. So you may experience another person, and let's say in a person you're with, because you're sensitive to their energy, like your friend is feeling uncomfortable or upset. You're highly sensitive. You have the ability to realize, oh, this person is uncomfortable, or they're whatever. But a lot of times, if you're projecting, you basically see them through the lens of your own projection. So rather than actually experiencing the actual emotions or thoughts that your friend is feeling, you're projecting your own thoughts onto them. And because you are feeling that they're uncomfortable or whatever, you're accurate in that, but you're not accurate in the assumptions that you're making about what that person is actually feeling. So do you see the difference? You're not literally experiencing what your friend's feeling. You're making assumptions based on the fact that you're sensitive enough to pick up that they might be uncomfortable. So again, everybody does this to an extent, but highly sensitive people, if you're not a highly sensitive empath, if you're not an actual empath, if you don't actually have the ability to pick up on what other people are actually feeling or thinking or experiencing in their physical bodies, like I said, there's many ways that this may come through. It's important that you know that you're not doing that, because the way a highly sensitive person heals their extreme projection tendencies is to be able to say, okay, that like, I validate how I feel, it's real to me, but it doesn't mean it doesn't mean the world's an unsafe place. It doesn't mean that person's thinking I'm insensitive, or that person's not thinking bad things about me. And it doesn't mean that, you do what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't mean that what you're experiencing is literally true for other people. And it's so crucial for a highly sensitive person to understand that, because as a highly sensitive person, it is important to validate your reality, but also to de-escalate your sensitive reactions to everything. A highly sensitive person, for example, and I know we've all experienced this, if you're in a conversation with a highly sensitive person and you express how you feel, and something about what you express triggers them or triggers any of their sensitivities, especially if they're highly sensitive, it can trigger something that has nothing to do with what you're saying or thinking or feeling. And that person is so reactive that from that point on, they can't actually hear you or feel you or experience you at all. Empathy implies that you are actually experiencing what another person is experiencing. When you're projecting, you're incapable of doing that. You are in your own emotional field. You're in your own sensitivities in your nervous system. So it's important to understand when you're doing that, whether you're highly sensitive, whether you're a highly sensitive empath or you're just a highly sensitive person, it's important to understand when we're projecting. So that's important across the board. But highly sensitive people have the tendency to do this a lot. And if you think you're empathic, it affirms and reaffirms you're projecting. And that's why I wrote the article, and that's why I think it's crucial that highly sensitive people do not assume they're empathic. Because just because you're sensitive to energy does not mean you're actually picking up on what is going on in the physical world around you. And it doesn't mean you're actually picking up on what other people are thinking and feeling. You may be sensitive to the fact that they're upset or angry or something's going on, and it's okay to recognize that. But don't assume that you're actually experiencing what they're experiencing. And I think the way you know is, and I'm going to do a whole nother article and probably video on this, but you can ask the person first and foremost, I'm feeling this, is this true for you? And usually if the person, and you can tell, I mean, anyone who's, again, sensitive, intuitive, if you tune in, you can tell if a person's being authentic when they're answering you back. And it's important to hear someone, no, that is not what I'm saying. That is not my reality. That's your reality. And I validate that it's your reality, but it's not what I'm saying or feeling or thinking in this moment. And it's so important for highly sensitive people to recognize that. Another way highly sensitive people often will respond to emotions, and I talked about this in the article as well, is, let's say, going back to the analogy of a friend losing a child. An empath, like I said, will often feel, depending on what kind of empath you are, literally directly experience what the friend is feeling in the grief and loss of their child. Someone who, just a normal human that's not a sociopath, will be able to feel the grief and be empathetic enough to know, oh my gosh, that would be so hard to experience. And they can share in that pain in that sense. That's regular, just having empathy. A highly sensitive person, however, especially if they have, again, unhealed wounds and they're unskilled in dealing with their highly sensitive natures, they may spiral down to, oh my gosh, this world is a horrible place. I don't even want to live here anymore. There's too much grief in the world, and spiral down, 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 down. They are in their own emotional reaction to the situation. And it's not a bad thing. And it's important to be able to still validate your own world and your own emotional reaction to things. But if you're assuming that you're literally picking up what the other person is feeling, it's misappropriation of your emotions. It's also usually bypassing in some way, like thinking that it's them and not you, and you're just this victim to what everyone else is thinking and feeling, and you don't have any emotions of your own. If you think that you're empathic when you're actually experiencing your own emotional reality, it's a way of bypassing yourself, and it's not healthy. It's not healthy for anybody to do this, empath or not. It's not healthy to bypass your own emotions and project it onto the world around you, like, oh, these are other people's emotions, they're not mine. And it is so detrimental when a highly sensitive person does this, because one of the things they need that's crucial for a highly sensitive person is validation, to validate themselves, because a highly sensitive person, especially when they're emotionally reactive, they're begging for the world to validate them. They're begging for the world to validate their sensitivities. And it doesn't matter how many times people do validate you or say you're right or whatever, it will not register until you validate how you feel, and that it's coming from you, from your sensitivities, and that it's okay. It's okay for you to be sensitive. It's okay for us to be sensitive. It's okay for us to feel things intensely. It's okay for us to be sensitive to energy. But we need to also validate that it's ours, and not try to say it's that person's, it's theirs. That's a form of, again, bypassing. And I think empath or not, empaths do this too, because a lot of times empaths aren't discerning enough to know when they actually are picking up someone else, and when it's just their own world. And a lot of empaths go into this victim mode as well, like, oh, I'm an empath, I'm sensitive, I have to hide from everybody, I'm so sensitive. And it ends up creating this kind of, again, victim mentality that empaths and highly sensitive people have. And it's a way of bypassing our responsibility for our own emotions and our own emotional world. It's really crucial that we all validate ourselves, that we all understand our emotional world, that we all learn how to process and release emotions, and then do whatever we need to do to help us cope and survive in a world in which it's intense energy and we happen to be sensitive to it. So, but you're not a victim. None of us are victims. I mean, we maybe have been victims at certain times in our lives, but once you understand what's going on, and you understand that you actually have a say in how you experience the world, you're no longer a victim. And so one of the things that frustrates me on belief is the dialogue and conversations that go on between for empaths and highly sensitive people, is this idea of like, oh, you're a vulnerable little lamb, protect yourself, shield yourself, and the whole world's just this big, mean, energetic bomb that's going to explode on you and you have to protect yourself. That is a horrible message to give an empath. It's a horrible message to give a highly sensitive person, because it's re-emphasizing the fact that they're vulnerable and weak. And that is not true. Just because you're sensitive, just because you're emotional, just because you're empathic, does not mean you're weak. It actually can be quite a strength. And I talk about this so much. If you're interested more in that, you can go to my website or you can check out other videos that I have. But the main thing I wanted to talk about here is understand when you're projecting, and also understand that you may not be empathic. And it's crucial that you understand this. And for empaths, it's crucial that you understand when you're actually empathing something and when it's actually yours. Only simply for the sense of validating how you feel and understanding yourself. We all project, and to an extent we're all gonna project, because we have subjective realities and we see the world through our subjective realities. But empathic abilities are real when you have a direct experience of someone else. For empaths, usually their difficulty is understanding how they feel, because they're so used to making themselves small and picking up what everyone else is feeling, especially emotional empaths, picking up what everyone else is feeling, that they often don't even have any clue how they themselves feel. A highly sensitive person, on the other hand, who's not empathic, is picking up, like I said, their emotional world, their nervous system is so strong and so dominant that they actually have a really difficult time actually feeling what someone else is feeling, and they assume that what they feel is what everyone else feels, or their reality is the actual reality of everyone. And that's why they get so highly defensive and reactive about everything, because they're on the defense again. And when you're on the defense, you're not in a receptive mode, so you're not picking up. That's another important, crucial way to understand whether you're actually empathing something or whether you're projecting. Are you on the defense or are you in a receptive mode? That's the difference. So the point is not necessarily whether you're empathic or highly sensitive, because again, empaths are highly sensitive and do the same thing. But the important thing to know in any given moment is, are you actually empathing something, or are you having your own experience and projecting it onto someone else? And empaths need to understand this too in any given moment. So, because there are times that we all project. So that was the point of the article. And I hope that makes a little bit more sense. And yeah, if you have any other questions, you can email me or go to my website and contact me through that. Okay, ciao.